Welcome back to the channel, folks. I'm your host, Fog. Thank you for joining another episode here on Fat Old Gamers. And today, we're talking the Infinity Game Table. It's new release Wednesday. It's new release Wednesday. And this week marks the first paid game available for the Infinity Game Table. That's right. This is Pandemic. Pandemic launched this morning, and you're seeing it right now. It's basically a $9.99 game, and the actual transaction, as you can see here, is based on a transaction system that they've added into the machine. I didn't check the firmware, so it's probably a firmware update came along with this, or in the last download or over the last couple weeks to be able to support the actual purchase process. But you can now do that, and you can save your payment, so that means future games hopefully will come out as well. Ticket to Ride being one of those that we'd probably expect to pay for. This game, though, we're going to take a look at, and let's just jump into it, is based on a co-op board game developed published, let's just say that. I don't know, when you're talking about board games, I'm not sure if they're published or if they're released or if launched or whatever you want to call them. I'm more of a digital person, but in terms of the board game, it was made available roughly in 2008. It's from the authors Matt Leacock, I think is, and Tom Lehman. And the company that actually published the board game for the board game version or the tabletop version was Z-Man Games. On here, though, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure if like the Infinity Game Table and Arcade1Up took the publishing on, or if this is still from Asmodee, which is the publisher on mobile and on PC as far as I'm aware. The original developer, though, for this version is F2Z Digital Media. So that's the details out of the way. Then we can get in and talk about the game a little bit. I mean, Pandemic is basically a co-op game where you're trying to solve the world's problems, and essentially you're trying to quell, or I guess maybe that's not the right word. You're attempting to take on 4 different diseases that have struck across the world. Let's just say that. And you're basically looking at different regions having different colors or different diseases in it. And you get to take on basically one of 7 different player types. There's dispatcher, there's medic, there's a scientist, a researcher, an operations, and we'll just jump in here, or operator, the contingency planner, and quarantine specialist, I believe. So you should be able to see those here. There is a nice training mode in it, but yeah, here's your different players. You have to have at least 2 players to start. Now, what's interesting is, as far as I know, the board game was only 2 to 4 players. The mobile versions are 2 to 4 players, but if we go in here and we start adding players, they've added 1 additional player. So this might be an Infinity Game Table exclusive where you can actually have a 5th player. Now, there are no other expansions or DLC to pick up as of yet. I don't know if that will be something down the road. Obviously, they have a transaction system in place now, so they can do that type of thing, but at least being able to add a 5th player is something unique to the table, although there's no DLC or anything that you can get for this, which you can get on the mobile versions. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 digital download packs or unlocks that you can add more content to the game. If we go ahead and start the game, you can get an idea of what it looks like. You're basically at a world level map. There it goes. And you get to see kind of the different regions. You have the United States and kind of Europe in blue. That's the blue virus. You have, or not necessarily virus, disease, whatever you want to call it. The yellow is kind of the Latin America region and Africa. Then you kind of have what I would expect as the Middle East and some of Asia, right? Moscow, and that is actually, Moscow is considered Europe, isn't it, as well? I don't know. I know Russia's Asia, but I thought there was a portion of Asia that was, or Russia that was considered part of Europe and part of Asia. Anyhow, we're not here for a world history lesson or layout. The red being the Pacific region, so Asia Pacific kind of areas, Asia as well in there. So you have different areas based upon the virus, disease, whatever the infection is. And you get to take on the different players. So each player takes their different turn, and you would go through and you're essentially trying to gather resources or the cards to be able to come up with a cure for each of the viruses. So each of the different colored plagues, viruses, whatever. So you have a yellow, you have black, you have red and blue. So you each start with X amount of cards. So right now we have a special card and we have a yellow card, Los Angeles, for our researcher, I believe this one is. So you can take your turn, you can share cards with the other players, so you're all working towards the same end to be able to beat the game. But you can also travel around just by tapping. So if we wanted to go to Madrid, we would use X amount of turns. I think we use 3 turns to get there, and then we can go ahead and treat that area. Now this player's finished. We would hit finish, then it goes to the next player. So that's kind of how the game is played. We're not here really to talk about how to beat or strategy or anything like that. The one thing I can see that they did for this table that is kind of unique versus the mobile game is that you actually have a way to turn the screen. So again, sitting around the larger table, having it on a table without the legs, something like that where you're not going to really like spin it around as you would a tablet or pass it around. You're going to basically want to be able to turn the screen without turning the physical device. So they've offered that ability here by just hitting the little, I guess it would be rotation, I guess, button is what you'd call that. So that's really all that they've done for the table. When you go in and you look at the menu system or the settings, there is no support for the vibration or the haptic feedback or anything like that. There's nothing really, there's not even a infinity table icon to be able to take you right back to the dashboard. None of that. So looking down the road, you know, kind of seeing how they developed this game, they just basically brought it over from Android, since it is essentially an Android tablet that we're playing on. There's not really those specific menu items or features being supported as there are with like the Hasbro tables or the Infinity Game published games that are, you know, available for the table, like that racing game and some of the other ones. So I think as we look down the road to the paid DLC, we're probably going, or the paid games, we're probably going to see just direct ports brought onto the table in very little development time put into it. Now I'm not suggesting that they didn't do Q&A and all this other work for it, but in terms of what we're looking at here, there's no support for the special features of the table. So, you know, essentially looking at it as maybe some developers might go the extra mile and add some stuff in or kind of, you know, unify the UI of the table. But looking at this game, you know, there might just be games coming out that will be very basic and just almost identical to their smaller tablet or phone versions of their games. So yeah, if we go into options, still the exact same thing. Nothing there. You do get a chance to see rule books. You can adjust your difficulty on the right hand side. You have play, training, and exit the game, and that's pretty much it. It's a almost direct port from the basic version of the Android game, but you know, without the DLC. So we'll see if they add more to it down the road. But just wanted to give everybody a first look at the new game. It is available. It's $3 more than what you can get actually $4 more, I believe. I think it's $9.99 on here, and I think the mobile version is $5.99. So you're essentially looking at paying $4 more for the larger screen, the extra player, so you can have 2 to 5 players instead of 2 to 4, which kind of was neat that they did that. So I guess they did go a little bit extra and added added another option for a fifth player in there, which is kind of nice and kind of unique to the table. So that's it. Want to give everybody the first look. Definitely check it out for yourself if you're into that game. Otherwise, you can definitely check the game out on mobile, even on PC. I believe that you can find that on Steam just as easily, and usually they're pretty cheap. You know, they do go on sale quite often, especially with the upcoming holidays. There'll probably be sales galore on all the different platforms, but you can now purchase games on your Infinity game table. Looking forward to it. Really interested to see what else they can bring to this device. So, folks, appreciate you watching, checking this out. Hope you got something out of it. Hope you enjoyed the video itself. If you did, give us a like. If you didn't, obviously give us a dislike. It's always good to know where we stand with the community and understanding if we're putting out the right content. And if you haven't already, definitely leave a comment. Let us know what your thoughts are on the Infinity game table. There's been plenty of people commenting on all the different videos, so we'd love to get that. Try to respond to each and every one of you, and definitely want to continue the conversation. But otherwise, stop back, and we'll talk to you then. Thank you. Bye-bye.